My daughter told everyone I was too forgetful to live on my own. But that same night, my grandson handed me a recording, one where she sold my future for the price of my house. So I walked into my own birthday party smiling, knowing before the night ended, someone I loved would be leaving in handcuffs. Before I go on, let me take a quiet breath. If you're here, listening to an old man sort through the pieces of his life, thank you. Feel free to subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. Your support means more to me than you might realize. All right, let me begin. I've lived in Redwood Hollow for almost 40 years now, a small town, slow mornings, the kind of place where folks wave even if they don't remember your name. My cottage sits at the end of a gravel road, tucked between two old pines that creak whenever the wind shifts. I used to joke they were the only neighbors who minded their business. Most mornings, I'm awake before the sun. Habit, I suppose. The body remembers routines long after life stops demanding them. I shuffle into the kitchen, boil water, and stand by the window while the kettle warms. My hands aren't steady like they used to be, so I hold the mug with both palms and breathe in the steam. It reminds me I'm still here. My daughter Marcia once loved this house. When she was little, she'd sit on the back steps with her sketchbook and draw the garden like it was her own secret kingdom. I built that garden for her during the lean years. Tomatoes, basil, little patches of marigold. She used to pluck the tomatoes right off the vine and eat them, laughing with juice on her chin. But she grew up, went off to Brookford City, married Greg Turner, a man who was polished in all the wrong ways. Smooth talker, good handshake, eyes that never quite matched his smile. Still, I tried to like him. For her sake, every Sunday she'd call. One crack, and suddenly everyone has opinions about your future. Still, until all this happened, I believed her concern came from love. My days were simple. Walks through the garden, old jazz records, fixing things around the house that didn't really need fixing. My wife, Helen, passed 12 years ago, but I still keep her scarf on the coat rack. Sometimes I reach for her side of the bed before remembering she's not coming back. Grief doesn't leave. It just settles into a quieter seat. My grandson, Evan, visited often. 19, gentle, awkward, and kind in a way the world doesn't teach anymore. He'd help with groceries, change the porch light, or sit with me and talk about classes. He listened, really listened. When I spoke about Helen or the old days or the small aches life had given me, he was the one person in my family who never made me feel old. The week before my birthday, he dropped by unannounced. There was a tension in his posture, a tightness around his eyes. "Grandpa," he said carefully, "are you feeling okay? I mean, really okay?" I laughed it off. "Well, the knees complain, the back whines, and the wrists argue with me. So yes, I'm doing just fine." He didn't laugh, just nodded, too slowly. Looking back now, that was the first tremor before everything cracked open. But at the time, I brushed it aside. Marcia insisted on hosting a birthday party for me at the Lakeside Veterans Hall, said it would be good for me to be around people. I didn't argue. She sounded excited, and I wanted to believe that excitement was real. The night before the party, I sat on the porch listening to the crickets. The sky above the pines was turning a deep purple blue, peaceful, familiar. The kind of night that makes you grateful for small things. I remember thinking how lucky I was. Even with the aches, even with the losses, life had settled into something gentle. I didn't know then that the silence of that night was the last true peace I'd feel for a long time. But that peace was about to end. The day of the party began like any other. Evan picked me up around 4. He drove quietly, hands tight on the wheel, jaw clenched in a way I'd never seen before. Every few seconds, he seemed to start a sentence, then swallow it. Halfway there, he exhaled hard. "Grandpa, there's something I need to tell you before we walk in." My heart dipped. "All right," I said softly. "Go ahead." He didn't look at me, just stared at the road ahead. "Keep your phone with you tonight, and don't drink anything unless I hand it to you. Please." A slow chill crept through my chest. "Evan, what's going on?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled into the far corner of the parking lot, shut off the engine, and let the silence settle between us like something heavy. Finally, he said, "They're not throwing this party for you, Grandpa. They're planning something." I turned to him fully. "Who's they?" He swallowed. "Mom, and Greg." The world outside the windshield blurred, shadows of trees, gold reflections off the lake. "What did you hear?" I whispered. His fingers trembled as he pulled out his phone. I heard them talking 2 weeks ago. I thought I misunderstood. But yesterday, I recorded them. He tapped the screen. Marcia's voice filled the car. Cool, practical, unrecognizable as the daughter I raised. It'll be easier if he doesn't argue. The sedative goes in his drink. Dr. Lambert already filled out the evaluation. Once he's checked in, we list the house immediately. 600,000, maybe more. Then Greg's laugh. Sharp. Cruel. He won't fight. Old people don't. They just fade. Fade. The word punctured something inside me. Not anger. Not even hurt. Just a cold, hollow space where love used to sit. Evan lowered the phone, eyes wet. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I didn't know what to do. I placed a hand on his arm, steadying him. You did the right thing, son. We sat there for a long moment. 2 generations held together by something far stronger than blood, truth. Finally, I spoke. They expect me to walk in smiling, so that's exactly what I'll do. Evan's breath shook. Shouldn't we just go to the police? I will, I said quietly, but not before they show everyone who they really are. When we stepped inside the Veterans Hall, the lights seemed too bright. Banners shouted, "Happy birthday, Henry," in cheerful colors that suddenly felt mocking. Marcia rushed over, hugging me too tightly. Dad, you made it. You look tired. Are you okay? I smiled slowly. I'm all right, sweetheart. Greg clapped my back hard. Big night, huh? The pressure of his hand lingered too long. Marcia lifted a glass of punch. Drink this, Dad. It'll help. Before I could respond, Evan stepped between us, gently switching the glasses. He'll take this one, he said. Marcia's smile faltered. Evan, what are you doing? Their eyes met, and I saw it, the moment she realized he knew. She recovered quickly, plastering on cheer, guiding guests, laughing too loudly. But her gaze flicked toward me often, sharp and assessing. I watched them move around the room, Marcia whispering with Greg in corners, Greg checking his watch, both of them glancing at the side door like they were waiting for a signal. The worst part wasn't the plotting. It was their calm. As if deciding my fate had become a casual family chore. Halfway through the evening, Greg approached me again. Let's get some air, he said, too smoothly. You look pale. Before he could steer me outside, 2 uniformed officers entered quietly through the side door, Officer Rivera and Officer Callahan. Evan had called them the moment we arrived. Greg froze. Marcia's face drained of color. Officer Rivera approached me gently. Mr. Caldwell, may we speak with you privately? Greg's jaw clenched. Marcia's fingers tightened around her glass. The room seemed to tilt. I nodded. Of course, officer. As I stepped toward them, something inside me steadied, like a lantern being lit in a dark hallway. And in that moment, I realized something simple and painful. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break down. But something inside me went very, very quiet. And that's when I knew I would not stay silent. The officers asked for a quiet room, so Evan and I followed them into a small side office that smelled faintly of old paper and lemon polish. Outside the door, I could still hear the muffled hum of the party, as if nothing had cracked open in my world. Officer Rivera kept his voice low. Mr. Caldwell, your grandson gave us the recording. We need to verify a few details. I nodded, hands loosely folded in my lap. They didn't shake, not yet. Evan sat close beside me, his knee bouncing a little, a small tremor of guilt he didn't deserve. I answered the officer's questions carefully, slowly. Did I know about the plan? No. Did I feel threatened? I wasn't sure what I felt. Threat wasn't the right word. It was something heavier, like standing at the edge of a cliff you'd walked past 100 times, only now realizing the ground had been eroding beneath you for years. At some point, Officer Callahan gently placed a bottle of water in front of me. Take your time, sir. I didn't open it. I just stared at my reflection in the plastic, this older man with lines I didn't remember earning. A man who had raised a daughter, buried a wife, built a life, and now sat in a room while strangers explained how close he'd come to losing everything. When the officers stepped outside to speak with their supervisor, the quiet finally broke me. Not loudly, not with tears or trembling, but with a single deep breath, the kind that empties a person out. Evan looked at me, eyes shining. Grandpa, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner. I rested a hand on his shoulder. No, you saved me. And I meant it. Still, the hurt sat inside my chest like a stone. Not because of the plan itself, but because my own child had looked at my life, my memories, my home, my dignity, and seen something she could rearrange like furniture. When we left the officers stayed behind to question staff. Evan and I stepped outside onto the back patio. The air was colder than before, crisp and sharp, carrying the scent of lake water. A string of yellow lights flickered overhead, buzzing softly like tired fireflies. "I keep thinking," Evan murmured, "how many times she looked you in the eye while planning this." I didn't answer. I just wrapped my coat tighter and watched the reflection of the moon shimmer across the dark water. A quiet ache spread through me, not angry, just tired. Inside the hall, laughter burst from a table. Glasses clinked. Someone cut a slice of cake. All of it felt distant, like a world I no longer belonged to. There was a time Marcia would run to me with scraped knees, small hands gripping my pant leg as she cried. I would lift her, soothe her, whisper, "You're safe now." I thought love built a kind of lifetime immunity, something that protected you from ever doubting your own child. But that night, standing under those buzzing lights, I realized love can bend. Slowly. Quietly. Until one day you turn around and see it twisted into a shape you no longer recognize. A drizzle began to fall, soft as breath. Evan pulled his hoodie over his head. "You want to go home, Grandpa?" "Home." The word hit somewhere deep. I nodded. When we reached the house, everything looked the same, the porch light glowing, the garden still awake with the scent of basil and soil. But it felt different, the safety that had wrapped itself around this place for decades. It wasn't there tonight. I walked from room to room, touching familiar objects, Helen's scarf on the rack, the chipped mug I'd used that morning, the ring of condensation still on the kitchen counter from my afternoon tea. Small things, ordinary things, but now they felt fragile, like pieces of a life that someone had quietly tried to steal while I wasn't looking. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and listened to the rain. My chest tightened with a loneliness I hadn't felt since Helen passed. A loneliness born not from being alone, but from realizing someone you love has already stepped away from you long before they speak the words. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I drifted, my mind replayed the recording. Marcia's voice, Greg's laugh. That one cruel word, fade. Around dawn, I finally sat up, feet touching the cold floor. And in that quiet moment, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not vengeance, just a slow, steady resolve. A thought as calm as morning light. I began to think, very carefully. If you're still listening, thank you. Stories like this remind me that patience isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the quietest kind of strength. Morning light slipped through the curtains like a soft apology. I sat at the kitchen table, elbows on the wood Helen once polished until it gleamed. The rain had stopped, but a thin mist curled across the yard, blurring the garden she loved so much. The house was quiet, painfully quiet. But inside that silence, a thought was forming, not sharp, not furious, just steady, like the slow tightening of a knot. I poured myself a cup of tea, hands trembling only a little. The warmth helped. The familiarity helped, and with each sip, the shape of a plan began to emerge. I would not confront Marcia with shouting or accusations. I would not beg for explanations I already knew she wouldn't give. And I wouldn't allow her to twist this into another story, one where I was confused or fragile. No, if she wanted to treat me like a man unable to manage his own life, I would show her just how wrong she was. I shuffled to the writing desk in the living room, a small place where I kept old tax papers, letters, and a few photographs. For years it had only held memories. Today, it would become a battlefield. First, I called Attorney Miles Rowan, a friend of Helen's brother, a man who still sent me Christmas cards even after 30 years. His voice crackled through the line. "Henry, you doing all right?" I swallowed. "Not really, Miles. I need your help." I told him everything. The recording, the sedative, the forged medical evaluation, the plan to take my home. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. "I'm coming by this afternoon. Do not sign anything. Do not speak with them. And Henry, keep that recording somewhere safe." I slid the phone back into its cradle and exhaled slowly. Next, I made a list. My handwriting uneven but determined. Secure medical records. Notify bank of possible fraud. Contact Dr. Lambert's licensing board update. Will and power of attorney. Speak to Officer Rivera for next steps. Each line steadied me. Each stroke of the pen rebuilt a piece of the confidence they'd tried to strip away. I wasn't fighting them with fists or fury. I was fighting them with truth, patience, and preparation. Around midday, Evan arrived with 2 bags of groceries and a look that broke my heart a little. He hovered near the counter. "You okay today, Grandpa?" "Yes," I said gently. "Better than I expected." He helped put things away but kept glancing at the desk. "What's all this?" "My plan," I said simply. He sat down slowly, reading the notes. You're really doing this?" "I have to," I replied. "Not just for me. For anyone they might try this with next." His jaw clenched. "I'll help." I placed a hand on his arm. "You already did." After he left, I spent hours sorting through files, old insurance forms, copies of Helen's medical papers, property deeds. My fingers brushed the photograph from the day we bought the cottage. Helen's hair was tied back, her laughter frozen mid-burst. I set it upright, facing me. "Help me do this right," I whispered. The afternoon passed in careful motions, photocopying documents, labeling folders, making calls in a calm, measured voice. Not once did I let myself rush. Revenge, I'd learned over a lifetime, isn't about striking back. It's about restoring balance. About standing, quietly and firmly, in the place someone tried to push you from. Around 5, Attorney Rowan arrived. His coat was damp, his expression grim. He spread my papers across the table with practiced precision. "We'll protect your assets today," he said. "And tomorrow, we'll deal with the rest." He guided me through everything, revoking the outdated power of attorney Marcia once had, placing a temporary protective order on the house, securing my accounts. Every signature felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Then he looked at me seriously. "Henry, you understand this isn't just greedy behavior. This is criminal, and we have enough evidence to make sure the right people see it." I nodded. "I understand." He leaned back. "Good, because patience is your strength here. Timing matters. Let them think nothing has changed." That line settled deep in my bones. Let them think nothing has changed. The title phrase drifted through my thoughts then, not spoken aloud but simmering quietly. My daughter tried to lock me in a home for my house, and she still has no idea what's coming. As dusk settled outside, I packed every document into a locked metal box and slid it beneath the bed. When I straightened up, my back ached, but my spirit didn't. The stage was ready. The players were in motion, and all I had to do now was wait. A calm kind of power filled the room, steady, patient, unshakable. The stage was set. All I had to do was wait. The next few days passed quietly, almost too quietly. Marcia didn't call. Greg didn't text. Not even a polite message asking if I enjoyed the party. Silence can be a kind of confession, and theirs said everything. But silence can also be a shield, and I used mine well. By Wednesday morning, the sky had cleared. Sunlight stretched across the kitchen table, warming the folders Attorney Rowan left behind. I made myself tea, dressed in a clean sweater, and waited for the knock I knew would come. At 10:30 it came. 3 sharp taps. Not tentative. Not kind. I opened the door to find Marcia standing stiffly on the porch, hands clasped, smile brittle. Greg hovered behind her, eyes darting past me into the house, as if he were already measuring drapes. "Dad," Marcia said, "we need to talk." I stepped aside. "Come in." She glanced around the living room with a familiarity that stung. This was once her home. Now she looked at it like an acquisition waiting for the right buyer. Greg cleared his throat. "We heard you spoke to the police at the party. There seems to be confusion." Confusion. What an elegant little word for what they had planned. I settled into my chair. "No confusion at all." Marcia forced a laugh. "Dad, you've always trusted me. I'm trying to help you. You've been forgetful lately, misplacing things, repeating yourself." "That's interesting." I interrupted gently, because yesterday I reviewed every medical document in my file. Not one doctor has ever noted cognitive decline. Her face tightened, the mask slipping for just a breath. Greg jumped in. "Well, Dr. Lambert is under investigation," I said softly, "along with the forged evaluation, the sedatives, and the pre-filed admission documents." They froze. I watched their expressions change, not dramatically, but in small, sharp shifts, brows lowering, breaths catching, eyes widening with the first tremor of fear. Marcia's voice cracked. "Dad, how much do you think you know?" I opened the metal box on the table and slid out a folder. "Enough." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't tremble. I simply laid the truth between us like a quiet blade. "This is the recording Evan gave me," I continued. "Your voices, your plan, everything." Her hand flew to her mouth. Greg stepped back. "Henry, let's be reasonable." I shook my head. "No, let's be honest." The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Sunlight caught the dust in thin, trembling strands. "You tried to take my home," I said. "My life, my freedom. You wanted me to fade so you could profit from the man who raised you." Marcia's tears broke then, slow at first, then steady. I didn't mean. But excuses collapse easily when they're built on greed. I held her gaze. "You had choices. You chose this." She sank onto the couch, hands shaking. Greg looked ready to run, but the sound of a car door outside stopped him. Officer Rivera entered the open doorway with a calm nod. "Mr. Caldwell?" "Just as we discussed." Greg's face blanched. "You called them here?" "No," I replied. "I invited them." Rivera addressed Marcia and Greg with professional calm. "We need you both to come in for questioning regarding allegations of fraud, coercion, and attempted unlawful guardianship." Marcia's voice broke. "Dad, please don't do this." Her words trembled through the house, brushing against old memories, her laughter as a girl, her tiny hand gripping mine on her first day of school. I wished those memories could have saved her. But love cannot excuse harm, and forgiveness cannot erase danger. I turned away from her pleading eyes and spoke quietly. "I didn't do this, Marcia. You did." Rivera guided them toward the door. Greg muttered curses under his breath. Marcia stumbled, then steadied herself, mascara streaking her cheeks like bruises made of ink. As they stepped outside, the world seemed strangely still. No shouting, no dramatic collapse, just the soft click of the door closing behind them. Inside the quiet that followed, something inside me loosened, a tension I hadn't known I carried. I sat down slowly, hands folded in my lap, not victorious, not triumphant, just free. Sometimes revenge doesn't roar, sometimes it whispers. And in that whisper, I felt the weight lift from my chest, a lightness I hadn't felt since Helen was alive. A calm truth settled over me. And in that silence, I finally felt free. The cottage felt different once the house grew quiet again. Not empty, just honest. The kind of quiet that lets a man hear his own heartbeat without fear. I stepped out onto the porch as evening settled over the pines. The sky carried a soft wash of gold, fading into the blue Helen used to paint so well. For a long moment, I let the air fill my lungs, slow and steady, like my body finally remembered how to breathe. The storm had passed, not the kind made of thunder or rain, but the kind made of betrayal and silence. I walked the length of the porch, resting a hand on the railing I built decades ago. My daughter's plan had nearly taken everything from me, my home, my independence, the quiet life I'd earned one small day at a time. But what stayed with me most wasn't the scheme itself. It was how easily she believed I would surrender. People think revenge burns hot. They imagine fire and shouting and slammed doors. But the truth is much quieter. Real revenge is clarity. It's choosing patience over chaos. It's standing in your own doorway, steady and unbroken, while the people who underestimated you face the weight of their choices. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of tea, one for me, one in front of the empty chair across from me. A small habit I never broke after Helen passed. Some comforts don't require company. Evan joined me, slipping into her chair gently, almost reverently. "You okay, Grandpa?" he asked. I nodded. "I think I am." And the truth was, I felt lighter than I had in years, not because Marcia was gone, not because justice arrived in a patrol car, but because I had my life back. My home. My say in how the rest of my days would unfold. I whispered the title of this story once more, not as a wound but as a lesson I'd earned. My daughter tried to lock me in a home for my house, so I turned her perfect plan against her. Growing old doesn't mean losing your voice. Sometimes it means finding it again, soft, steady, and wise. Maybe justice isn't loud or fast. Maybe it's simply this. Being able to fall asleep in your own bed with peace in your chest and no one waiting in the dark to take your future from you. If this had been your story, what would you have done? Share your thoughts below, and if my voice kept you company today, I'd be grateful if you subscribed for more stories like this one.